I know this might sound strange, but the most powerful decluttering method I've ever tried didn't start with a trash bag. It started with my phone. For most of my life, I believed that decluttering meant pulling out heavy boxes, dragging around garbage bags, and forcing myself to let go of things I wasn't ready to part with. And if you're over 60 like me, you know how exhausting that can feel, physically, emotionally, and even financially. But then I stumbled onto a method that flipped everything upside down. Instead of asking, what should I throw away? I began asking, what deserves to stay? And the tool that helped me answer that question wasn't my hands, it was the camera on my phone. Suddenly, decluttering became less about guilt and more about clarity, less about loss and more about choice. It didn't feel like a battle anymore, it felt like a discovery. And before I tell you how it works step by step, let me ask you this. If a simple photo on your phone could tell you what actually matters in your home, wouldn't you want to try it? If that thought surprises you, then do me a quick favor, hit the like button and subscribe right now. Because what I'm about to share isn't just another tip or hack, it's a mindset shift that completely changed the way I live after 60. And if it worked for me, it just might work for you too. Method 1. I named my purpose first. When I first began this journey, I learned something that surprised me. The hardest part of decluttering wasn't sorting through drawers or moving boxes, it was sorting through my own thoughts. I'd step into a room, see shelves stacked with objects, and feel an invisible weight pressing down. Every little thing seemed to whisper a reason to stay. You might use me someday, or remember when you bought me. That endless inner chatter kept me frozen for years. So, before I touched a single object, I decided to quiet the noise by giving myself one clear compass. I grabbed a pen, sat at the kitchen table, and wrote down this simple line, I'm only keeping what supports my life in the next 12 months. That sentence changed everything. A 12-month window was the sweet spot, long enough to include every season, every holiday, and the surprises life throws at us, but short enough to cut through all the someday excuses. If I hadn't worn it, used it, or needed it within a year, it wasn't supporting the life I was living now. But I didn't stop there. I wrote that sentence on sticky notes and placed them in the places where clutter always seemed to win: the bathroom mirror, the dresser, the kitchen counter, even inside cabinets. Every time I opened a door or reached for something, those words were right there, gently but firmly asking, is this item helping you today, or are you keeping it for a version of yourself that no longer exists? Almost immediately, my perspective shifted. Decluttering stopped feeling like a painful goodbye and started feeling like a gift to my present self. That one line gave me permission to release the guilt I'd been carrying, the guilt of wasted money, the guilt of unused gifts, the guilt of not living up to old expectations. Suddenly, it wasn't about letting go of the past. It was about clearing space for the life I actually wanted to live right now. If you're over 60, you know how precious energy and time are. Having a sentence like this taped around your home is like having a personal coach reminding you to stay focused. For me, it was the difference between staying stuck in overwhelm and finally moving forward. Honestly, without it, I doubt I would have made it past that first closet. So let me ask you, if you had to write your own guiding sentence today, what would it say? Method 2. I made a Keep Me Now album on my phone. After I had written down my purpose, I needed a way to actually put it into practice without feeling crushed by the weight of 100 decisions. That's when I turned to something I already had in my pocket, my phone. Instead of dragging out boxes, bending over heavy piles, or forcing myself to choose on the spot, I opened my photo gallery and created a brand new album called Keep Me Now. This wasn't just another folder. It became the filter that separated what truly mattered from what was just taking up space. The rule was simple: if an item still served my life today, it had to earn its place with a photo. A quick click, add it to the album, and it was officially a keeper. But if I couldn't bring myself to snap the photo, that silence told me everything. It wasn't part of my present, and it didn't deserve to stay. What made this so powerful is how effortless it felt. Taking a photo takes seconds. No sore back, no aching knees, no guilt from tossing something into a trash bag before I was ready. For the first time, decluttering wasn't a tug-of-war with my emotions, it was like creating a gallery of my real life. Later, when I scrolled through the Keep Me Now album, I saw a clear portrait of what still mattered. The mug I reached for every morning, the sweater that kept me warm on chilly evenings, the one cookbook I still used weekly. It was all there, and everything else was just noise. There was also a surprising emotional gift hidden in this step. Photographing an item felt like honoring it. It was my way of saying, "You've been part of my story, and I'll always remember you." Even if I didn't keep the physical object, I still had the photo, and with it, the memory. That one change made it so much easier to let go of extra gadgets, knickknacks, and well-meaning gifts that no longer fit my life. For anyone over 60, this is a game changer. Our homes often hold decades of just-in-case clutter, but our bodies don't need the strain of hauling it, and our minds don't need the burden of storing it. A Keep Me Now album turns the process into a positive act of choosing, not losing. It's about celebrating the things that truly support the life you're living today, not the life you lived 20 years ago. So let me ask you, if you opened your phone right now and started your Keep Me Now album, what's the very first item in your home that would earn a spot? Method 3. I only started with 7 objects. When I committed to this process, I knew one thing for sure: if I tried to do it all in one day, I'd fail. At my age, the thought of tackling an entire closet or dragging myself through hours of decision-making just wasn't realistic. I didn't want exhaustion. I wanted progress. So I set a rule that felt almost too small to matter: just 7 objects. That's all I asked of myself. I stood in one spot, looked around, and chose 7 things that clearly belonged in my present life. No overthinking, no guilt trips, no debating their worth. Just a simple gut check: does this deserve a place in my future? If the answer was yes, I snapped a photo and added it to my Keep Me Now album. When I reached 7, I stopped. That was enough for that day. Why 7? Because 7 is big enough to feel like progress but small enough to avoid overwhelm. 2 or 3 would have felt like nothing, and 20 would have sent me straight into decision fatigue. 7 was doable. And something shifted with that choice. Those first 7 items became a statement. They were the core of my life now: the mug I reach for every morning, the sweater I pull on when the air gets chilly, the skillet I can't cook breakfast without, the photo of my granddaughter that makes me smile before I even sip my coffee. Those 7 weren't clutter. They were anchors. And here's the secret: starting that small built momentum I didn't expect. The next day, I picked another 7. The day after that, 7 more. By the end of the week, I wasn't just decluttering. I was curating a home that reflected the life I was living, not the one I had left behind. For seniors, this step is a lifeline. It prevents the burnout that keeps so many of us stuck. It reminds us that we don't need to climb the whole mountain at once. We just need to take one small, steady step. And soon, the view changes. By the time I'd done a few rounds of 7, the items I hadn't chosen started sticking out like background noise. I could see them clearly for what they were: things that no longer belonged in my daily life. So let me ask you, if you had to stand right where you are now and pick just 7 objects that truly deserve a place in your future, what would make your list? Method 4. Everything else went into an OnPause bin. This was the step that finally took the weight off my shoulders. After I chose my 7 objects and photographed them for the Keep Me Now album, I looked around and saw everything else still staring at me. Normally, this is where the guilt would kick in, the inner voice whispering, "What if you need this someday? What if you give it away and regret it? What if you're dishonouring the person who gave it to you?" That voice has frozen me for years. But instead of wrestling with it yet again, I tried something new. I gave myself permission not to decide right away. That's when I created my OnPause bin. I grabbed a plain plastic container, nothing special, and slapped a big label on it: OnPause, open in 14 days. That time frame was the secret. 14 days felt short enough that I wasn't saying goodbye forever, but long enough to test whether those items actually had a place in my daily life. I wasn't donating yet. I wasn't throwing anything away. I was just pressing pause, and that shift lifted the fear that usually made me quit halfway. The magic of the OnPause bin is that it turns decluttering into an experiment instead of a punishment. If I really needed something, I could go back, grab it, and even promote it into my Keep Me Now album. No shame, no failure. But here's what shocked me: most of those bins stayed shut. The things I thought I couldn't live without turned out to be invisible in my everyday routines. That silence was proof they didn't matter nearly as much as I imagined. And for seniors, this step brings another layer of relief. It saves your body. Instead of running around the house, bending over a dozen times, or lifting heavy bags, you're just moving things once, straight into the bin. Less strain, less fatigue, more progress. Emotionally, the OnPause bin brought me peace. I no longer had to argue with myself about every single item. The rule was simple: if I didn't take its photo, into the bin it went. No maybe piles, no second guessing. Just a clear system that gave me breathing room. So here's my challenge to you: pick one bin today, label it OnPause, and fill it with the things you're not sure about. Give yourself 14 days. See how many times you truly go back for something. You may be surprised to discover that most of your must-haves are nothing more than extra weight you don't need to carry anymore. Would you be willing to test yourself with an OnPause bin? Method 5. I lived with only my photo permission items. This step was where everything started to click. After filling my OnPause bin, I challenged myself with a simple but powerful rule. For the next 2 weeks, I would live only with the items that had earned their place in my Keep Me Now album. These were my photo permission items, the things I had deliberately chosen because they supported the life I was actually living, not the one I had lived years ago. At first, I was nervous. I worried it would feel like going without, like I was stripping my life down too far. But the exact opposite happened. Instead of feeling restricted, I felt relief. Suddenly, my mornings were smoother because I wasn't digging through piles of mugs just to find the one I actually use every day. My closet felt calmer because the sweaters left in rotation were the ones I truly wore. Every single item within reach had already proven its worth. And that made life simpler, not smaller. The real test came when I thought I might need something from the OnPause bin. In the past, that would have sent me into a spiral of regret, but this method turned it into a lesson. If I reached for something, I didn't label it a failure. I just took a quick photo and added it to the Keep Me Now album. That meant the item had finally earned its spot through actual use, not through guilt, not through someday thinking. What surprised me most was how rarely I had to do this. Most of those bins stayed closed, silently proving that the majority of my belongings weren't essentials at all. By the end of 2 weeks, the truth was undeniable. If something sat untouched in the bin, it wasn't part of my life anymore. It belonged to a version of me I had already outgrown. And because I had lived comfortably without it for 2 solid weeks, letting it go no longer felt scary, it felt obvious. There was no guilt, no endless debate, no second guessing. Just clarity. For anyone over 60, this step is especially powerful because it confronts one of the biggest fears we carry, the fear of regret. What if I give something away and wish I had it back? But here's the gift of living with only photo permission items. You prove to yourself that you don't miss as much as you think. Regret doesn't come. What comes instead is freedom, energy, and peace of mind. So let me ask you, if you had to live for just 2 weeks with only the things you truly use, how much of your home would you actually need? Method 6. I kept a simple Reachback journal. This step turned out to be one of the most eye-opening parts of the whole process. I called it my Reachback journal. And don't worry, this wasn't complicated, fancy, or time-consuming. I didn't go out and buy an expensive planner or download a new app. I grabbed a small notebook and a pen, the kind you can keep right on the counter or by the bed, and I gave myself one rule: every night, I'd write just 2 quick lines. 1. What I reached back for from the OnPause bin. 2. What I didn't miss at all. That was it. 2 lines, less than a minute, and then I could close the book. But over time, this tiny ritual became one of the most powerful tools I had. It wasn't about tracking clutter, it was about tracking myself. At first, I assumed those pages would be filled. I thought I'd be reaching back for half a dozen things every few days. But when I looked after the first week, I was shocked. The list of things I actually retrieved was unbelievably short. One day it was a measuring spoon I had carelessly tossed in the bin. Another day it was a pair of old reading glasses. And that was it. Meanwhile, the didn't miss column stretched longer and longer, extra blankets I never used, a pile of cookbooks I hadn't opened in years, serving dishes that hadn't left the cabinet since my last big family holiday. Seeing it written down in black and white stripped away all my excuses. But the real power came from the patterns. I noticed that the things I reached for were always tied to routines, daily rituals that kept my life running smoothly. The things I didn't miss? They were tied to someday thinking. Someday I might host a party. Someday I'll use this craft kit. Someday I'll fit into this jacket again. But the truth hit me like a brick. Those somedays weren't coming. They were just clutter dressed up as possibilities. For anyone over 60, this little journal is a game changer. We're often told to trust our memory or listen to our gut, but memory can play tricks, and guilt can drown out our instincts. The Reachback journal doesn't lie. It gives you proof, not guesswork. If you didn't touch it in 2 weeks, you probably don't need it in the next year either. And that proof makes letting go so much easier. You're not giving up, you're simply facing the truth of how you actually live. So here's my challenge. Grab a notebook and try it for just 14 days. Write down what you reached back for, and what you didn't miss. At the end, look at those pages. That little mirror of your habits might shock you, but it could also be the permission you've been waiting for to finally let go. Method 7. I did a safety pass. This step may not sound as exciting as creating a photo album or filling an OnPause bin, but for me, it turned out to be one of the most life-changing. By this point, I had already trimmed down to my photo permission items and tracked my habits in the Reachback journal. But then I realized something important. Decluttering isn't just about having fewer things, it's about making sure the space I live in keeps me safe. So I walked the paths I travel every single day, from my bed to the bathroom in the middle of the night, from the bathroom to the kitchen in the morning, and from the kitchen to the front door whenever I head out. Those aren't just hallways or rooms. They are lifelines, the essential routes that make up my daily independence. And what I saw shocked me. There were obstacles I had stopped noticing: an old chair crowding the hallway, a basket of shoes at the entryway, piles of magazines that forced me to shift sideways as I walked past. For years, I thought of these as harmless clutter. But when I looked at them through the lens of safety, I saw something far more serious: trip hazards. And when you're over 60, one fall can change everything. Your mobility, your confidence, even your ability to stay in your own home. That's why I made myself a rule. Anything that narrowed my pathway, made me sidestep, or created even the smallest risk went straight into the OnPause bin for donation. If it hadn't earned a photo before, and now it was making my home less safe, it simply didn't deserve to stay. The difference was immediate. My hallways felt wider, my steps felt steadier, and for the first time in years, walking through my house didn't feel like navigating an obstacle course. And the peace of mind? That was priceless. I began imagining emergencies. What if I needed to get out of the house quickly, or what if a grandchild came running full speed down the hall? Clearing those paths wasn't just about tidiness, it was about protecting my freedom, making sure my home supported me instead of putting me at risk. If you're over 60, this step is one of the most important gifts you can give yourself. Your home should never slow you down or put you in danger. Walking those familiar routes with a safety-first mindset may feel strange at first, but once you see the risks, you can't unsee them. And clearing them brings a peace you didn't realize you were missing. So let me ask you, if you did a safety pass right now, what's the very first thing in your path that you'd move into the OnPause bin? Method 8. I handled sentimental items differently. If there's one part of decluttering that has always tested me the most, it's sentimental items. I can toss out old newspapers or unused kitchen gadgets without hesitation, but the moment I touch a photo album, a piece of jewelry, or one of my late husband's jackets, everything stops. It's never just an object, it's a memory, a story, a piece of my identity. That's why I knew I needed a gentler system, one that would allow me to honor those memories without letting them overwhelm my home. So I made a shift. Instead of holding on to every sentimental item, I began photographing them and capturing their stories. If I picked up my grandmother's delicate teacup, I didn't just snap a picture of the china. I wrote a note to go with it. She drank chamomile tea from this every night before bed. When I came across the program from my daughter's college graduation, I photographed it and added, "The proudest day of my life, watching her cross that stage." Each image, paired with its memory, went into what I now call my Legacy Stories album. The beauty of this approach is that it gave me freedom. I didn't have to keep every cardigan, ticket stub, or teacup. I could keep one or two physical pieces that still brought me comfort today, while preserving the rest in a way that was safe, accessible, and even shareable. My children especially appreciated this. Rather than inheriting boxes of fragile or forgotten items, they received stories they could revisit, cherish, and even pass on in digital form. What surprised me most was the relief. For years, I believed letting go of sentimental things was the same as erasing the past. But the opposite turned out to be true. By recording the memory, I wasn't losing it, I was protecting it. My home felt lighter, yet my connections to the people and moments I loved grew stronger because they weren't hidden away in dusty boxes anymore. They were front and center in a collection I could actually enjoy. If sentimental clutter has ever paralyzed you, I encourage you to try this. Take a photo, write a short note, and add it to your own Legacy Stories album. Then keep just one or two pieces that continue to serve you now. You may find, like I did, that letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means preserving your past in a way that truly lasts. So let me ask you, if you began your Legacy Stories album today, what's the very first sentimental item you would choose to give a permanent place? Method 9. I made Donation Day effortless. For years, Donation Day was where my decluttering progress went to die. I would gather bags, neatly pack boxes, and line them up by the front door, only to watch them sit there for weeks. Sometimes even months. Each time I walked by, I felt that nagging guilt. What if I need that again? What if I gave away too much? What if nobody even wants these things? Those doubts were dangerous, because they often pushed me to peek inside and pull things back out, undoing hours of progress in seconds. I knew I had to break that cycle. This time, I decided to make Donation Day completely effortless. Instead of loading heavy boxes into my car or planning a long trip across town, I scheduled a pickup. Many organizations in the US offer this service. Habitat for Humanity's Restore, the Vietnam Veterans of America, local thrift shops, and even church groups. They send a truck, they do the lifting, and all I had to do was place the boxes by the door. For a senior, this is a game changer. It removes the hardest part, the physical work and the logistics. Once I locked in that pickup date, I had a firm deadline. The bins had to be packed and ready. No excuses. When the truck finally arrived, I felt something I didn't expect: relief. I didn't have to wrestle with stairs, make multiple car trips, or question my energy levels. Everything went straight from the OnPause bin to the door, and in one moment, it was gone. My home felt instantly lighter. And here's the surprise. Instead of feeling regret, I felt gratitude. Those maybe someday items were no longer haunting me. They were on their way to people who could actually use them. What struck me most was how empowering it felt to strip away the friction. By removing every barrier, no driving, no second-guessing, no heavy lifting, I had finally created a process that worked with me instead of against me. And that's the secret at this stage of life. Decluttering shouldn't feel like punishment. It should feel like a gift of space, safety, and ease. If you've ever stalled at the donation step, I encourage you to make it as easy as possible. Call, click, or schedule a local pickup today. Let someone else handle the heavy part. Sometimes freedom doesn't come from doing more, it comes from letting others step in to help. So let me ask you, if a donation truck pulled up to your house tomorrow morning, which items would you be ready to send out first? Method 10. I built a future you shelf. By the time I got to this step, my home already looked and felt different, lighter, calmer, and easier to move through. But there was still one challenge I had to face: how to keep it that way. Decluttering once feels great, but the truth is, clutter has a sneaky way of creeping back in when you're not paying attention. Without a system, the same shelves, drawers, and closets slowly fill up again, and before you know it, you're right back where you started. I needed a way to protect myself from that cycle, something simple that would hold me accountable. That's when I created my Future You shelf. This wasn't a big project, it was just one dedicated shelf. But it had a very clear purpose. Only the most important, most useful, and most loved items were allowed to live there. The rules were strict but freeing. If something had earned a spot in my Keep Me Now album and I was using it regularly, daily or weekly, it could stay. If it sat there untouched for a month, it automatically lost its place. No endless debates, no guilty second chances. That shelf became my checkpoint, a quick visual reminder of what really belonged in my life right now. The beauty of the Future You shelf is that it works like an early warning system. Instead of waiting until a room feels overwhelming again, you can see immediately when clutter tries to sneak back in. If the shelf looks crowded, it's time to reassess. If it looks clean and purposeful, you know you're on track. In other words, your home begins to correct itself before the piles return. For seniors, this step is a lifesaver. It takes away the uncertainty and the energy drain of big decluttering days. Instead, it gives you ongoing clarity with almost no effort. And emotionally, it gave me something even bigger, peace of mind. Every time I looked at that shelf, I saw the version of myself I wanted to be in the years ahead. A woman living with less stress, more freedom, and a home that supported her, not one that weighed her down. That little shelf carried a big message: your future deserves room to breathe. If you're worried that decluttering won't last, this may be the step that changes everything. Give yourself one shelf, not for storage, but as a promise to your future self. Let it hold only the things that continually prove they belong. Everything else belongs in the OnPause bin or out the door. So let me ask you, if you built a Future You shelf today, what's the very first item that would earn a permanent spot? The result of this entire process was nothing short of life-changing. For the first time in years, my home didn't feel like a storage unit, it felt like a sanctuary. Rooms that once made me anxious now felt open and calm. My walkways were finally clear, which meant I could move around without the constant fear of tripping over something. Even simple daily routines, walking from the bedroom to the kitchen in the morning, or carrying laundry down the hall, became smoother and safer. And cleaning? It now takes me half the time it used to, because every surface is easier to reach and there are fewer things collecting dust. But the biggest shift wasn't just in the way my home looked, it was in how I felt inside. For years, I had carried around the heavy burden of what if I need this someday? That thought kept me stuck, surrounded by objects that no longer served me but still demanded space in my life. By using this unconventional method, I discovered that someday rarely comes. And when it does, I'm resourceful enough to handle it without holding on to mountains of clutter. Now, when I walk into my living room, I see only what truly adds value to my life. When I open a closet, I find things I actually use, not reminders of projects I never finished or clothes I'll never wear again. There's a freedom in that, a kind of mental clarity that spills over into everything else. I feel lighter, calmer, and more present. Most importantly, I feel like my home is finally working with me instead of against me. This transformation reminded me of something vital. Decluttering isn't about losing pieces of your life, it's about gaining back your independence, your safety, and your peace of mind. One of the reasons this method feels so different, and so effective, is because it's designed for the realities of life after 60. The first shift is mental. Instead of forcing yourself to decide what to throw away, which feels like a loss, you focus on what to keep. That simple reversal eases the stress on your brain. It feels more like curating your future than erasing your past, and that mindset change makes the process far less overwhelming. The second shift is physical. Traditional decluttering often demands endless bending, lifting, and dragging heavy bags around, things that can take a serious toll on aging joints, balance, and energy levels. But this method minimizes the strain. You're using your phone, moving at your own pace, and handling items fewer times. For seniors, that difference is huge. It means you can make progress without risking injury or exhaustion. It also tackles the emotional side of clutter in a way that respects your memories. Instead of forcing you to choose between keeping or losing, it gives you a third option, preserving the story through photos. The memories stay alive and accessible, but your home doesn't have to be weighed down by physical piles of the past. That balance, honoring memories while protecting space, creates relief instead of guilt. And finally, the Future You shelf keeps the system going. It's not just a one-time cleanup, it's an ongoing safeguard. By giving yourself one visible checkpoint, you prevent clutter from creeping back in silently. Every time you look at that shelf, you're reminded to live intentionally, to keep only what continues to serve you now. Put all of this together, and you can see why it works so well after 60. It's gentle, it's sustainable, and it respects both the body you live in and the life you've built, while still clearing the way for the freedom and safety you deserve in this next chapter. Decluttering after 60 isn't about giving up your history or erasing the moments that shaped you. It's about creating room for the life you're living today and the one you still want to build tomorrow. This unusual photo-based method showed me that I don't need to cling to everything in order to hold on to what matters. By choosing what stays with intention, I gained more freedom, more safety, and more peace of mind than I thought possible. My home feels lighter, but my memories are still intact, only now, they live where I can celebrate them instead of being buried under piles. If this gave you a fresh way to look at your own home, I'd love for you to hit like, share this video with a friend who might need encouragement, and subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors so you don't miss what's coming next. And here's my question for you, what's the very first thing you'd photograph for your Keep Me Now album? Your answer just might inspire someone else to start their journey today.